Hello and welcome to another video from my series Quick Thoughts On, in which I always talk about different stories from the rich Star Trek universe. 50 years and a couple of days ago, NBC aired a new episode of the classic Star Trek called The Omega Glory, and these are my honest opinions about it. This episode is special. The story itself is pretty old and you can feel it. It was written by Gene Roddenberry himself, the creator, and it was created back when the ship was called the SS Yorktown and its captain was James Winter. The ship got later renamed to Enterprise, the captain to Robert April, then to Christopher Pike, and later of course to James T. Kirk, but the story itself didn't change enough. This story was suggested to NBC as the first Star Trek pilot. They rejected it because the premise sounded stupid and chose The Cage instead. When it was time to choose a second pilot, Roddenberry again suggested The Omega Glory as a potential pilot, and NBC said again no. When the series was greenlit, this story was developed into a script by Roddenberry himself, but both D.C. Fontana and Bob Justman asked him not to produce it, because they both knew it sucks. When the second season started, Roddenberry hired 2 writers to rewrite it. They tried, but they just couldn't make it work, because the story sucked. So Roddenberry fired them and rewrote it again by himself. Nobody wanted to actually produce it, but in the end they gave up because they were running short of scripts. So they filmed it quickly as one of the last season 2 episodes. So this episode was in development for 2 years, and in the end it was filmed only because they didn't have enough better scripts. In case you haven't seen this episode, after hearing this short intro, you probably understand why I wasn't really looking forward to watch it again. But let's go to the plot, even though I don't want to. I really don't want to. We start on the bridge of the USS Enterprise with a strange close-up on Mr. Sulu. I thought the close-up and the weird expression on his face has something to do with the plot, but no. Sulu only says that there is another ship on the orbit, the USS Exeter. Both ships are now orbiting the planet Omega-4, but because nobody from the Exeter responds to Uhura's hails, Kirk, Spock, McCoy and Galloway beam to the ship's engineering section. They find there something interesting. Nobody is there except for uniforms filled with strange white crystals. Kirk tries to reach anybody who might still be alive using the intercom, but it looks like they are the only living creatures on the ship, even though the shuttles are still on board. They go to the bridge and find out that the crew went nowhere. The crystals are what remains of a human body when you remove all of the water. Because the human body is, according to Roddenberry or whoever wrote the scene, consisting of 96% of water, which would by the way mean that we contain more liquid than a watermelon. In reality, a human body contains something about 55 to 60% of water, so it's strange that a TV show which used scientific consultants got it so wrong. By the way, how did the bodies crystallize? Some super weapon? Some strange experiment gone wrong? No, a virus. I have a pretty big imagination and a couple of other pretty big things, but I can't imagine that a virus could, even in theory, crystallize the bodies of its host. We are only a few minutes in it and this episode gets dumber and dumber. That's not a good start. Spock plays back the last video recording of the chief medical officer, who says that they are already infected and they will die soon unless they beam down to the planet, and the tape ends when he dies. So was he so kind that he turned off the recording process in the last moment of his life? The landing party beams down, only to find a bunch of Asian guys trying to decapitate a white guy and his, I think, daughter. The execution is interrupted by Dr. Simon von Gelder. Sorry, I meant to say Captain Ron Tracy. He explains that the whites here are savages, called Yanks, and the civilized people who look like Asians are called the Combs. The Combs are friendly, and the Yanks are always attacking them without any proper reason. And Spock immediately notices that the Combs know what phasers are, and suggests that Captain Tracy violated the Prime Directive and should be arrested. McCoy and Kirk are working on a cure for the strange disease when Spock and Galloway return after they were attacked by the Yanks. Especially Galloway is seriously injured, so McCoy treats him first, while Spock explains that they found proof that Tracy helped the Combs in killing the Yanks, which is another violation of the Prime Directive. He should be indeed arrested, at least they should take away his phaser. Kirk tries to contact the Enterprise when suddenly Tracy storms in with a phaser in his hand. He shoots Galloway, but we should probably rename him to Lieutenant Lazarus, because just like Mr. Leslie, even Mr. Galloway will return in future episodes despite the little fact that he was killed. Tracy takes Kirk's communicator and tells the Enterprise that they've been down too late and now they have fever and are unconscious. The unconscious Kirk suddenly screams Sulu's name, and despite hearing it and then hearing sounds of a short fight, Sulu does nothing and accepts Tracy's lame excuse. What's wrong with Sulu in this episode? First the weird face, now this. He's usually not that dumb. Tracy tries to explain to Kirk the reason why he ignored Federation orders. Everybody on the planet is extremely old. His right-hand Wu is over 400 years old, his father is over 1000 years old, and nobody ever got sick on this planet. So Tracy plans to let McCoy isolate the so-called Fountain of Youth, and he will become rich by selling it. So yes, Captain Tracy is officially a cartoon villain. Kirk tries to escape, but he's definitely not successful. Both Kirk and Spock are thrown into jail. Spock has his own cell, and Kirk gets thrown into the cell with the Yanks. We get the privilege to watch a boring fight scene between two actors who look like they are desperately trying not to harm each other, and one young hot woman who is watching them. When the young girl makes a mistake and shows her back to Spock, he does the FSNP, the famous Spock nerve pinch. Seeing his, I think, daughter lying unconscious is a good enough distraction for the man, so Kirk gets him finally down. When Kirk talks with Spock and mentions the word freedom, the young man suddenly reacts and starts communicating. Freedom seems to be one of the young holy words. Kirk is happy that they can talk to them normally. He tries to remove the iron bars, because this is a movie prison and at least one bar can always be removed. When they find the correct bar, and together with the man, they take it out, the man smacks Kirk on the head from behind and runs away with his daughter. After 7 hours, Kirk regains consciousness and manages to get out of the jail together with Spock and get soon to McCoy. Bones found out meanwhile that there is no miracle potion and no fountain of youth. The people here live long because it's natural for them. And of course he adds stuff like, if some people survive an atomic war, their children will live longer. That sounds stupid to me, but let's pretend it's correct. It's not really important for the plot. The important thing is that Tracy betrayed the Federation principles without any good reasons. If this was a good Roddenberry script, we would explore Tracy's psychological state, and we would get there some social commentary too, but because this is a bad script, Tracy simply flips out when he's confronted with the truth and tries to kill Kirk. We get another long duel between Tracy and Kirk, but this time it's ended by Yanks invading the town and capturing them. And the dumbest thing is only about to happen. Instead of simply killing them, the Yanks just tie them all up and bring them the American flag. I wish I was joking, don't get me wrong, I have nothing against patriotism, but this is just stupid. What is the American flag doing in the hands of some Stone Age level white guys on a different planet? And it gets even dumber. The man, who now introduces himself as Cloud William, the chief of the Yanks, starts to say their holy words, which is a mumbled version of the American Pledge of Allegiance. Kirk, of course, tells the original version, which impresses them. You know, the Yanks are actually Yankees, and the Combs are actually communists. Brilliant. Just brilliant. Cloudy Bill tries to find out where they are from, so Kirk tells them that they came from the stars, which they of course think means that they were expelled from heaven. Let's think about this for a moment. The worst thing, the biggest crime Tracy did before he tried to kill Kirk and the rest of our heroes was that he violated the Prime Directive. Kirk even says that any captain would rather die than interfere with the natural development of an alien race. So what does Kirk do now? He explains them that there is life on other planets. He basically tells them that there is no heaven, ruining their religious beliefs. He gives them the correct holy words. In other words, what Kirk does in this scene is that he talks to a pre-warp civilization, changes their political system, changes their social system, and changes their religion. I'm sorry, didn't Kirk just become the villain? Shouldn't he rather die, according to his own words from the beginning of the same episode? Tracy uses the confusion for his own opportunity and tries to persuade them that Kirk, Spock and McCoy were indeed expelled from heaven and that Spock is actually the devil. They even pull out a special version of their Bible. Why a special version? Because you can open it on a completely random page and you will get an image of a devilish creature looking like Leonard Nimoy, and they also find out that Spock doesn't have a heart. So how do they decide to find out if the Enterprise crew was expelled from heaven? Let Kirk fight to the death with Tracy, who claims that he talks for God. Okay, so the Yanks know that Tracy helped the Combs with killing them. He even gave them the better weapons, but now, when the writer has no clue how to end the story, they are willing to accept that he speaks for their god? So they believe that their god hates them and wants them dead? I never expected to actually see an episode which gets dumber as it goes along, and we are treated with another long fight sequence. This episode manages to make fight sequences boring. That's an achievement. I'm serious, I'm watching two men fighting for their lives, and instead of feeling their drama, I am just watching how long it will be till the end. And they fight, and they fight, and they fight. This episode is filled with stupid crap and boring action scenes. I'm not sure why I suddenly get Star Trek Discovery flashbacks. Strange. But anyway, Spock uses the Force and uses its strong influence on the weak-minded girl and forces her to bring him the communicator. She even starts it, and soon Sulu and his away team beam down to the room and start arresting. But not before Kirk wins the duel, but just like in every other fight to the death he was in, he refuses to kill the loser. Which is good, of course. But why do you always put him into a situation where he basically cheats his way out of it in every single time? And because Kirk didn't violate the Prime Directive enough already, he takes out their holy documents, which only the chiefs can do, and tells them that those words are for everybody, including the Combs. So he even changes their political system. Seriously, why is Kirk not in jail? And I'm not even going to complain about the fact that the Stone Age white people have the American Constitution and pretend like it's something good for everybody, not just the USA. Just because this episode doesn't piss me off enough, it even ends with a close-up of an American flag. Please end. A message to all of my American audience. As I said, I have nothing against patriotism, but I don't like the idea that things like the American Constitution or the flag can be found on some random planet without any proper explanation. There are several huge differences between fantasy and science fiction. The main one is, of course, that while you can do almost anything in a fantasy, if it doesn't contradict previously established canon, but everything you do in a science fiction must be based on scientific principles. The science doesn't have to be itself real, but even the fake science has to be based on some real scientific principles. In other words, you can't make some random shit up and don't give any explanation to your audience. Or you can, but you know, your audience will hate it. I read online that they tried to explain it in a deleted scene, suggesting that the inhabitants of this planet are actually descendants of Earth's early space voyages, but that has two problems. The first one is that what is not in the episode didn't happen. Second, are you really trying to tell us that between the 1960s and the 23rd century, mankind managed to invent space travel, lose some early astronauts, not care what happened to them, the astronauts managed to land on a previously uninhabited planet, have so many generations that they actually created a population, hate each other so much that they invent some doomsday weapons, which will get everybody who survived back to caveman status? And don't forget that Wu's father was more than a millennium old. That's just dumb. Maybe this could be saved as some kind of a time travel story. You know, something like the Planet of the Apes, where the Enterprise crew would fly inside some space phenomenon, end up on an unknown planet, find there these two races, and a huge twist would be that they are on Earth, and the two races are indeed Americans and Asians. Maybe that could be done as an interesting two-parter. I don't know, maybe it would work, maybe it wouldn't. It definitely doesn't work as the story. As I said before, the story gets dumber as it goes along. The fact that some of the characters act strangely could be explained by the age of the story. As I said, the basic story is older than the series, but come on, Gene, you could do better. You should do better. I can't understand how the same writer who wrote this episode could write the masterpiece called The Cage, which is my favorite Star Trek story ever. And however good you think you are, if somebody like DC Fontana tells you that your script sucks and you should not film it, then swallow your cried and don't film it. As you might tell, I don't like this episode. I like the teaser and all of the stuff which takes place on the etc. and that's it. And every new scene is worse than the previous one, which is quite shocking. On my scale from 0 to 10, where 0 is complete garbage, 10 is a masterpiece, and 5 is just average, I would give this episode 4 out of 10. And I think I'm very generous. Anyway, with this out of the way, I can finally start working on a good episode, and the fact that it's written by my favorite chosen writer, DC Fontana, makes me very optimistic. I haven't seen the Ultimate Computer for a while, but I remember that I liked it, so it will be hopefully uploaded in the next couple of days. Meanwhile, thanks a lot for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit the thumbs up button, and if you have some free time, feel free to watch any of the other videos on my channel. Thank you very much for watching again, and see you soon. Bye.